Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Stanley number BB852. This is an application E, special swag. The hinge that I have here is a 7/8 of an inch swag, and here it is. Here is the hinge. We'll go over the dimensional properties of it first. Basically, it sure looks like it's a full mortise hinge at this point. Oh, pardon me, a full surface hinge at this point. It certainly could be with this 7/8 swag, meaning when the leaves are brought parallel, that happens to be 7/8 of an inch. And we know that it's full surface because the range of what you can select for the swag, or the dimension between the leaves when they're brought parallel, is from 1/8 of an inch to 7/8 of an inch. This hinge is at its maximum, so it has to be a full surface hinge. Let's take some dimensions. The BB852 is the triple weight contender in the detention hardware catalog when it comes to hinges. It's the heaviest one. It's 5x6. It's 5-inch wide, and it's 6-inch. It's 5-inch tall, and it is 6-inch wide. It weighs about 5.15 pounds. It is possibly the heaviest. Well, this is a detention hinge, so it's unusual. 6-inch wide. It's unusual in the sense that you're not hanging a standard door with this. Not even, no typical door. Not even an obscene door. The leaf thickness is being triple weight. It's going to be about 390,000. Well, should be 0.402. If I was going to call it triple weight. This is measuring 0.393. 0.393. So where am I getting triple weight? Standard weight's 134 thousandths. Heavy weight is about in a 5-inch tall hinge. 5-inch tall. Standard weight is 140 thousandths. Heavy weight's 190 thousandths. This should be 0.42 would be my guess. Double weight is about a 1/4 inch. It's going to be heavy on a 1/4 inch, about 0.27. This is basically 3/8 of an inch. You know, if it was truly triple weight, I would be thinking it's going to be 3 times a standard weight, or 0.42 inch. But this is, 3/8 is what they call it. The height is the first dimension. It's really important to know when we call it a 5x6, we mean height first and then width. That's important to know. You know the leaf thickness as well. Now, let's talk about exactly where in the world we would use such a hinge. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Where would we use this hinge? Well, in detention work. This is in the detention catalog, which means prisons, basically, or some application like that. Those doors, I suppose you'd call them, jail or penitentiary doors, they're really welded steel. I happen to have been, coincidentally, as a tourist in San Francisco and went to Alcatraz, and I was able to see firsthand, even though that equipment's 100 years old, detention hardware. And I would think, while modern jails are likely different than they were when they were built 100 years ago, I would think that there's not a lot of evolution on a hinge that will hang something that's 2,000 pounds heavy based on 3 hinges. This will handle a 2,000 pound door. So I saw these hinges that were not unlike this at all. They weren't Stanley. They could have been. They didn't look exactly like this, but at 6 feet away to the novice, they'd look identical. Welded onto the application, all the steel that's there, swinging doors, sliding doors. It was quite interesting because in the world of builder's hardware, we never see anything like this. It's, a 5x5 is about as big as we'll routinely get to, or 5x4.5. We happen to stock 6x6 and 8x8 because we have customers that are hanging a 4.5-inch thick door that happens to weigh 800 pounds or 700 pounds or whatever it is, and we've got heavyweight 8x8s for applications not unlike that. Now, assuming that you're not doing detention work, because that's its own universe, we only get involved in supplying work that will go into a detention application very occasionally when someone asks us for a high security lock. Actually, that's not true. We do have clients that are corrections facilities, and they will order builders hardware from us, cylinders and whatnot. But when it comes to detention hardware, it's not unheard of that we would supply high security locks. Mogul cylinders, which are 2-inch diameter mortise cylinders, are under that umbrella as well. But people aren't calling us up building a penitentiary or a corrections institution facility and ordering BB852s from us. The people who build all of the material, and I'm not an expert, but the welded steel itself, they're supplying everything. From what I understand, the companies that deal in that industry, they're completely vetted sorts of organizations where they are, I would think, as close to being owned by the government as possible. It would be like Newport Hughes Shipbuilding. There's one contractor who makes nuclear subs for the United States Navy. I would think it's not unlike that. Where we get dragged into, not dragged, where we are asked to participate on such a hinge is when you are building something that's really crazy heavy and extremely cool at the same time. Our customers are some of the most imaginative and genius people that I've ever met. And an application like this is when there's going to be a 1,000-pound gate that happens to be 6 foot wide, and they are doing an application where, one that comes to mind is residential. Someone built a very large gate. It was going to be operated with an automatic gate operator. There was going to be a caster out there as well because the width was really wide, like 16 feet wide. Nonetheless, they still needed an absolutely mammoth hinge to hang that. Another example would be, I had a client who was doing like a 5x10 welded structure, what would ultimately be an exterior gate, some sort of welded structure leading to a retail environment, restaurant environment on the first floor, and then residential up above. And this thing was epic. It was a gate in the sense that it was mounted quite high off the floor, like you'd have in partition work in Division 10 or restrooms. You couldn't use a floor closer, which is what you want to use when something's 1,000 pounds. But this was an exterior application, and floor closers may not be the best thing for that, even though they are available as a sealed closer. But they couldn't modify the floor, nor did the door run or the gate run all the way to the floor. So we need something to the jam post, or I think it was a jam post attached to masonry with a header. So it was really a welded rectangle, if I recall correctly. But they needed something massive. And this type of hinge is what you're dealing with. This is an application E. There are A, B, C, D, E. There might be F and G, and we'll look at that in a moment. They're basically all the same hinge, but they're basically all different. They're all the same hinge in the sense that you take it out of the box, they're all going to look like this. But how they differ is that bend on the hinge leaf. This is the application E, which is a special swag. You can order the application E in any dimension between here, from 1/8 of an inch to 7/8 of an inch. This is the 7/8 version. I didn't specify the size to the factory necessarily, but they ship 7/8 version. That's what that actually is, okay? When you are ordering this, you have to specify what size you want. Now, this would work out just sublimely for a a full surface application where you're going to weld all of this. Keep in mind, this is 3/8. And whatever you're going to weld this to, and I'm not a welder, but I can weld. I understand the principles, oxyacetylene. I can oxyacetylene, even though I haven't done that in a while. And MIG welding. This would not be something I would use. I would personally MIG weld. I would gas weld this. I would probably oxyacetylene this. Whatever you're going to weld to has got to be substantially thick as well. You've got to get so much heat and so much molten metal happening at the same time to make this a positive weld. You're going to want someone who makes a living welding, in my opinion. Full surface, because it's the maximum 7/8. This would be welded. Now, Why would you need to specify that? Well, this is the application E, meaning they'll do a full mortise hinge like this, even though this isn't full mortise. At 7/8 swag, I'd call it full surface. But when you change that bend, you give it a little bit of a bend here so that you decrease the margin between the leaves when they're brought parallel. That allows you to accommodate whatever application you have. So be mindful, if you're doing some job where you have an unusual requirement for a swag on a leaf, the application E is what you order, and then you specify that. An application E or some derivative of that could also be used. Let me back up. It's important to know that when you install this hinge, you're not going to have the barrel of the hinge encroach into the space or the face of the jamb or the rabbet. So you could have a 6-inch piece of channel iron. You could weld this right inside, and nothing about that nothing about the barrel is going to get in the way. If you put a big bend on this leaf and bent that leaf up in here, well, now when you close that hinge barrel is not going to sit flat on that 6-inch channel iron. What's nice about the application E is you can determine, once you've determined what you want, you can order it that way. 1/8 to 7/8 and 1/16 of an inch increments. Now, this could also be used as what we might call a double mortise. This would probably be a quadruple mortise, whereas you're going to surface mount it to the jamb typically. And then in the door, you're actually going to have a 1.25 inch, well, let's say 1.1 inch deep mortise, because this leaf is not going to sit flat to the edge of the door. It's going to sit, basically 3/4 of an inch in the material. So the door would end up coming way over like this and covering this area. We call it a double mortise, and we do double mortises when you can't mortise to the jamb. So in a piece of 6-inch channel iron, you're not mortising to that. You're surface mounting it. But it's going to be an application where the hinge cannot be surface mounted. It has to be installed like a full mortise. So how do you prevent the problem of having a substantial gap between the channel iron and the edge of the door? You double, triple, quadruple mortise it. Well, triple mortise it, let's say. Double mortise into the door. That will bring the door way out so that you have a normal reveal over here. It'd be another reason why you would use a 7/8 swag when you're going to do that weird mortise. We see it in wood doors and wood frames, but the client cannot mortise to the jamb because it is a frame it's a cased opening frame, and there is no stop, except that what will stop the door is a piece of hardware. But they're going to surface mount that hinge right to the face of the jamb. In order to not have a huge gap between the edge of the door and the jamb, you double mortise the door. You make a really deep mortise into the door with your router. And then not only does this leaf sit in that mortise, the void sits in the mortise, but so does this leaf. So you could actually mortise that door in this example all the way till the door comes right to here, where you won't see hardly any margin there at all. So 7/8 here, you got 3/8 here. You might encroach into this space by 1/4 inch. 1/4, 7/8, 1 3/8, 3/8, 1 3/4. So quite a really deep mortise that you're going to have in there. I guess what I'm driving at with all the blah, blah, blah is that the application E can be ordered to meet the requirements of how you need the hinge leaves bent to suit the application. Let's switch to the screen view and let's take a closer look at all the supporting documentation. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. Okay, now, what our friends at Dorma, which is Best, which was Stanley, what they're showing us here, application E is special swagged. What they're saying here is oops. What are they saying here? Bear with me. Is that you have to specify that swag. Let's see here now. We have different information. They've got 16th to 9/16. That doesn't make sense because our documentation from the factory. Yeah, we're going to go with the cut sheet here. Full mortise applications to the center of the barrel is 1.1 It should be at least 1.1 from the face of the door to the vertical axis of pivoting. That's fine. But what we're getting at here is leaves can be swagged apart any distance 1/8 to 7/8 on this application E. This is literally showing a double mortise. You could also mortise that deeper to pull the door even closer to that channel, that channel angle frame. Imagine if this was even deeper. You would draw the door here even closer over to here. You could do that as well. So you could decide how much margin you want between the door and the jamb. I mean, this has got to be every bit of 1/2 inch. It seems excessive to me. You probably do it better, tighter. That just depends on how deep you mortise it. But the other full mortise hinges, which are applications C and D and E, give you an idea of what this will look like. So really what we have in this box is an application C with a 7/8 margin between the leaves. That's really what's here, except it was ordered as an application E. Yeah. Yeah, it actually doesn't even look like this very much. Just it's rounded in here. Actually, it comes down and then rounds out. But regardless, when you have a need for a special swag dimension on an application, on a full mortise application, and it's not 7/8 or it's not 1/8, you're going to order an application E. That's what you'll do. It goes to say that this paragraph here says we can do any size between these. But like I just said, 1/8 inch will be an application D. Application C is going to be the 7/8. So it really should be 3/16 to 13/16 in terms of what you would select for application E. So if you ordered an application E 7/8, it may say on the box application C, I guess is what I'm driving at. These do not feature any holes. They're obviously meant to be welded. Or maybe you're doing some unusual mounting. Maybe you need holes drilled and countersunk in some unusual location. Okay. Now, this document is the cut sheet. And let's take a look at the description of this material. It's a BB852 steel with welded pin, phosphated and prime coated for painting. For lead line doors to x-ray rooms, extremely heavy doors and gates. This wouldn't be, in my opinion, used on an x-ray room. Not one, I should say, that I've ever seen. Extremely heavy doors and gates, yep. Hinged cell front doors, grated steel doors, penitentiaries, jails, reformatories. Triple weight steel capable of carrying a 2,000-pound door based on a 3070 with 3 hinges. If you get wider than 3 foot, this hinge hasn't been engineered or tested or certified for that. The width plays havoc on the weight rating of a hinge. Each of the 2 concealed hardened steel races contains 16 3/16 hardened and ground steel balls, which are assembled within a jacket. That's right here. You don't see any of that. That's concealed. Provision has been made in the barrel for forced lubrication if further lubrication is necessary. Grease is what the manufacturer has recommended. Bearing grease, I think. Typically made, not swag. No holes, application A for full surface applications. So the hinge that we have here, our application E, is like an application A, in the sense that, you know, it will act as a full surface hinge. But you know, the way that this hinge is formed, they're imagining that you're doing a full mortise application where you have this requirement for an E. The B is the same as the A, except now it has holes, and it's got a 1/2 by 13, 1/2 inch diameter, 13 threads per inch flathead machine bolt that's included with them. Full surface without and with holes, full mortise. These do not have holes. Half mortise. They're not going to have holes. I don't believe they will. I don't believe any of these 5 hinges down here have holes for fasteners. No, that's not true. Application D has holes. Yeah, right here. They can do it with or without holes. Table down here gives the sizes, the thickness, diameter of the pin, etc. Now, there's also some images that we can look at. Let's do that now. This is not the right hinge. Showing the welding that's occurring here. Normal hinges aren't welded there. Normal builder's hardware hinges are not welded. These massive hinges would be. The backside. Another view showing that there's no swag on those hinge leaves. They're just flat. You will notice the name Best here. If you've heard the name Best, you probably have for lock sets. That's where this name came from. Dorma bought the hinge manufacturing capability from Stanley. Stanley leased back the Stanley name to Dormacaba for 10 years. For 2 years, I believe. That has run out. Now all Stanley hinges are now called Best. They're going to say Best on the box. Maybe Dormacaba, but they'll say Best. There's your label. These are made in China. I believe most, if not all, Stanley Best hinges are made in China. 5x6 P600, that means prime coat. The data sheet now. There's also a link below this video to the document called, the product brochure called Detention Hardware. And detention hardware is exactly as it sounds. You're going to have hinges in here that become increasingly more mammoth. 2, 3, 4, 500-pound hinges. We're going to quickly get up to the BB852, which is an 800-pound hinge. Looks just like the 852. It's the younger brother. Then you've got the massive 855, 2,000-pound doors here. Then other detention hardware. A hinge for a specific food pass cuff port hinge. I'm not familiar with this at all, but I get the idea of how that would work. Stops that would be poured, put into a hole and placed in with mortar or a sleeve anchor. Security style pulls with security fasteners, etc. That's the end of that catalog. Now there is a link below this video. Oops, wow. If we were on, if we were on the page, in this area here, there would be a link to the manufacturer's page within our website. You can also get to it by the word manufacturers anywhere, and when that comes up, you can do a find function for Stanley, and you'll want Stanley hardware, which is here. The catalog that I like for standard builder's hardware Stanley products is the 2010 architectural hardware catalog. That detention catalog is right below it. There's also a 1954 Stanley cabinet hardware product catalog if you wanted to look at that for any reason. There are other links here. A link to the manufacturer's website as well. All of the Stanley products that we sell by means of this horizontal navigation as well. Let's wrap up this video on camera. If you've made it this far into this video, you must be determined to see it through to the end, and we appreciate your hanging in there with us and watching this entire video. It means a lot. It takes a lot of work to create these videos in the sense that, you know, it's time taken away from doing other things. However, the advantage for me personally of creating these videos is the fact that it does allow myself to either learn about something new, to reacquaint myself with something, or to reinforce what I believe that I already know. Any comments that you might leave down below would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Okay, so if you have any questions on the BB852 and an application E or any other Stanley detention product, let us know. Be happy to help to the extent that we can. More so with builder's hardware material, your ever-present FBB179 or your CB199, whatever the hardware happens to be. I'm a unapologetic fan of Stanley. I think that their fit and finish is always exceptional, best in class. Stanley would be, in many instances, the hinge that I would personally use, that I would personally suggest that you consider. And we try to keep these really odd hinges around because I find that our clients, they've spent months getting something designed and approved and ordered and fabricated, and now they're ready to hang it 2 days from now, and no one thought of hinges. So we try to keep 2,000-pound hinges, or those 8x8 hinges, or Harmon hinges, or a center hung pivot that will hang a 3,000-pound sort of door, you know, heavyweight 5x5s, 6x6s, 8x6, 6x5, pivots, you know, things of that nature, stuff that you can hang and do fun things with and have a small quantity available if you're doing one opening, let's say, ready to ship now. You know, that's kind of the thing, is what we're going after, because unfortunately it's true, the most dastardly of hardware that's got a long lead time is usually an afterthought. So we try to take that problem out of the equation. Any questions on the BB852 or any other Stanley product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you. Regarding the links to ads that you might see in this video, we do apologize for any interruption to a smooth viewing experience. And hopefully the ads that are being presented to you are related to the base product. And if there is something, feel free to click on those and perhaps consider taking a look at what that other advertiser is promoting. Let's get back to the video. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you. Thanks to our clients, Architectural Builder Supply is building an additional facility, and what follows is not only a look at the acreage that we're building the facility on, but also first the architectural renderings as they exist, or at least the architectural plans as they exist at this time. Thank you very much. Let's take a look. All right, let's take a look at the architecturals as they exist at this moment, or at least it wouldn't be proper to call these architecturals, but it would be proper to call them renderings in the sense of they're conceptual drawings, they're not renderings. So the entire space is going to look like this in terms of a site rendering. This will be a 22,000 square foot building, of which will have specific purpose areas. There'll be a workshop down here. This is a few thousand square feet that will be likely woodworking, metalworking, CNC, things of that nature. This will be an office area here, a private office area. This will be Architectural Builders Supply expanded storage area where we will be able to do fulfillment. The entire space in the center is going to be all of the volume, as I call it. Large components will be able to be stored and stocked there. Machinery that's too large to fit otherwise may be put out here. Specific facility rooms and then some recreation over here. Let's take a look at that drone footage, and thank you very much for taking a look.